Thank you very much for joining today's stream. Hopefully, there are going to be no issues with the sound. Can you let me in the chat, dear friends, if sound is good? Because I was dealing with some technical stuff. So I guess sound is okay. So, okay, dear friends, today is, of course, 1st of August and Saturday. So, happy weekend, everybody. I hope you will have a great weekend. This is my second news update for the day. First one was published early in the morning, first on my YouTube, my Patreon and Boosty pages, and then a bit late I published it on YouTube and Rumble also. And this one is a second one. Of course, we have much more updates by now. It is a 3 p.m. Moscow time, and well, I will share all of it from special military operation and the maritime embargo or blockade of Kiev regime to Israeli-US war on Iran and migration crisis in Europe. There is a lot of news that I will go through. Before I start, let me just remind you, if I may, that you can initiate a conversation about any topic you like. All is needed is to question to be sent either through support platforms. Basically, it's all the same, right? I'm repeating the same stuff on daily basis. So all the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment if you want to support my work and also initiate conversation about anything. That's being said, let's go through some news, and I will start with the good news. And dear friends, yesterday I shared with you during the update information that Russian forces liberated two settlements, Stenki in the DPR and Verovka in Kharkov region, right? And today we have also update that two more settlements were liberated by Russian forces, Olgovka in Kharkov region and Lubitskoye in Zaporozhye region. So let me show you location of these settlements now. So when it comes to Lubitskoye settlement in Zaporozhye, that's Lubitskoye, right? This area is under full Russian control now. So Russian troops continue to advance from eastern sectors of Zaporozhye region towards Zaporozhye itself, basically, while meanwhile encircling one of the major strongholds of Kiev regime in Zaporozhye sector, Orekhov. And I guess it's a matter of hard to tell, but maybe this summer we will see battle for Orekhov. Difficult to say, right? But well, progress is still there, by the way. Also, even though Russian Defense Ministry did not yet confirm the information, but independent sources are reporting that in DPR, Russian Air Forces established control of the Toretskaya settlement that you see right now on your screen. Russian troops clearly are pincering now Drushkovka, Alexeyevo Drushkovka, and Drushkovka settlements. Russian troops are advancing from three directions, and I would not be surprised at all if Russian militaries will actually encircle Drushkovka and Alexeyevo Drushkovka and all these tiny villages around there. Could be case. Also, dear friends, we have numerous reports about advances of the Russian Air Forces in direction of Kramatorsk and Slavyansk. Just take a look at these icons. All of them are indicating advance of the Russian Air Forces, finalizing. In some places, clearing operation is being finalized. In some places, Russian troops are advancing. And what is very important, Russian troops are further increasing their presence in Nikolaevka settlement on the eastern side of Slavyansk. And of course, liberation of this settlement will be a big deal, because after that, there is practically nothing left before Russian troops will enter the Slavyansk itself, right? So some significant developments are happening in DPR, this northern western corner of the DPR that Kiev regime still has its presence, Kiev regime and its NATO backers. And when it comes to Kharkov region, there were reports about liberation of settlement Olgovka, right? So this is the area, basically. Dozens of maybe two dozen of buildings, really, a small village, But nevertheless, it is a progress, right? You have to liberate everything, big or small. So another settlement there that is liberated by Russian forces. So every day, after little pause past week, now we are every day receiving again news about liberation of either one or several settlements on the line of contact, which is of course good stuff. Also, we have reports, dear friends, that Kiev regime tried to send reinforcements into Bielogolodes settlement in the Kharkov region. The Russian military spotted this movement of the hostile side, and their entire this reinforcement was eliminated with Russian FPV drone strikes and artillery strikes. Let me just show you area where this occurred. It's a Kharkov region, Volchansk direction, and Russian troops basically establish operational control of the Belikolodes settlement. Russian troops are from the west, from the north, from the east, and Russian troops have established a strong fire control over their logistical lines that Kiev regime's garrison was trying to use, garrison in Belikolodes, and well, I guess to somehow maintain their presence in this settlement, in this town. Kiev regime sent reinforcements, and that reinforcement didn't arrive. It was completely eliminated by Russian forces, which once again confirms that even though technically speaking, Belikolodes is not yet in full encirclement, but operational encirclement is clearly there, and the regime's garrison in this town is cut off basically, and they can't use logistical lines for supply and support. So also important development. I would not say time because I just don't know, but it's probably in a week or two we will hear news about liberation of that town in the Kharkov region. Also, dear friends, Russian armed forces conducted yet another relatively large-scale, long-range precision strike on military and their logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime, military-industrial complex of the Kiev regime, energy infrastructure that is related to military capabilities of Kiev regime throughout their Ukraine, but also inside their Kiev itself. Defense Ministry, early in the morning when I was recording first news update, no details were known about what exactly, for example, was struck in Kiev. But now we have these details. Defense Ministry shared, as I predicted in my first update. Defense Ministry actually shared with the public additional information. So let me share with you now this information. Russian troops targeted Kiev-based fire pointer, which produces components and warheads for Flamingo cruise missiles. This happened overnight. Russian Defense Ministry reported. Also among the targets of Russian militaries in Kiev, there was a Radio Izmeritel company, which produces parts for FP-1 drones and the Neptune MD missiles. Russian militaries also struck Burevestnik enterprise, which is responsible for creation of, again, whining about lack of air defenses. He was demanding more missiles. Right nowadays, but if this is true, and there only one missile was intercepted, if even one missile was intercepted by Kiev regime, well, that definitely is an indicator that sky is open over the Kiev controlled territory. And still, they might have, and they definitely have, quite a number of air defense systems left. But in general terms, I guess sky over there, Ukraine is wide open now, because if you only are capable of intercepting one missile out of 30, that on its own says the story, isn't it? It tells the story. Also, dear friends, Russian armed forces conducted their long-range strikes on military logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime, and not just during the nighttime in Odessa area during the day. Also, there are a number of reports about more assets being struck in Odessa region, and we have this report, for example, according to which Russian troops struck their oil refinery and a number of vessels that were delivering military cargo to Kiev regime. Fuel storage tank and their worker shops at the Odessa oil refinery in the port of Odessa itself was eliminated. Among the other targets, it was a dry cargo ship was struck that was carrying supplies to Kiev regime's forces. And this is not all. Literally, like hour, 2 hours ago, number of sources published new videos of Russian strikes on vessels in the Black Sea that were attempting to kind of break through the blockade and deliver some goods to enhance military capabilities of Kiev regime. In Odessa region ports, in the Danube River ports, and at least 3 vessels during this attempt were struck by Russian militaries. And well, as I said, there are a lot of videos about it out there. And even before that, by the way, we had more reports about vessels being struck that was moving towards Kiev regime's coastline. Overall, at least until this morning, 31 vessels were struck during this week, that were attempting to deliver certain goods to Kiev regime to enhance its military capabilities. 23 was a cargo vessel, 4 bulk carrier, 2 tugboats, cable laying vessel, and their landing craft. And giving their number of vessels that were struck in past 12 hours, well, overall number could be, I don't know, man, up to 40 now. And this is just this week alone. So maritime blockade still stands on this Western backer terrorist and Nazi regime in Ukraine. And well, it is definitely becoming a nightmare for Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists and their NATO backers. As longer this maritime blockade continues, of course, bigger will be the impact it will have on the military capabilities of Kiev regime and logistical capabilities of Kiev regime, plus economical and financial capabilities, because after all, some 70-80% of Kiev regime's exports will rely on maritime routes, and now they cannot use these routes, right? They have to ask European countries to let them send whatever they want to send first into Europe, and then from European ports elsewhere. And of course, this is going to be logistical nightmare, and plus this will create additional tensions between Kiev regime and number of European countries, especially societies of these European countries that don't want to see their countries being flooded with anything from Ukraine, right? And the logistical lines to be overwhelmed by Ukraine, so that local producers will struggle, right, to move around their goods. So definitely this maritime blockade creates a lot of a headache for NATO member states, for Western backers of Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists, and that's something good, right? Also, there was explosions that were reported a couple of hours ago in Kharkov. No details what exactly was struck, but you can see on your screen here, friends. Thick smoke is coming out of the area that was targeted. I guess yet another warehouse where Kiev regime was storing some munition or drones or something of that kind. In Pavlograd, Dnipropetrovsk region, also another massive warehouse was destroyed that was used by Kiev regime to store munition and their weaponry. I mean, you can see on your screen here, friends, scale of their destruction. Nothing is left from that military warehouse of the Kiev regime. And not all, but many of these long-range precision strikes, especially lately, Russian troops are conducting with advanced Geran drones, drones that are operated through satellite or internet as one of their means of communication. And I said many times before, dear friends, that my guess is that this satellite internet, this Russian alternative to American Starlink, is a product of a Bureau 1440 company, right? And well, interestingly enough, Kiev regime is beginning to complain now, and the so-called media in Ukraine reports reports that Rassvet communication satellites from Bureau 1440 are already providing Russian militaries with uninterrupted communication for at least several hours every single day, while satellites are on top of their, geographically speaking, are on top of their Ukraine, right? So satellites are covering whole of Ukraine for at least several hours, and they're giving their reports that just recently, about like in past 2 weeks, Bureau 1440 launched another batch of drone satellites, communication satellites in space. Ones that right now, as we speak, are reaching their working orbits. Well, I guess soon Russian Bureau 1440 will be able, let's say this way, to cover all of Ukraine 24-hour. And of course, if my guess is correct, and Bureau 1440 is supporting Russian militaries with their satellite internet, then Russian militaries will have this additional tool in their hands to take out any target on a Kiev-controlled territory with their precision, while deploying these advanced Garand drones, Garand 4, and whatever the numbers are out there, right? There are different type of drones, plenty of them now, right? Some are look like traditional Garand drone, others are very different. You would not even notice, you would not even knew that it is a drone, not a missile. Some definitely looks like a freaking missile, by the way, jet-powered missiles, but in reality, it's a drones. So, well, at least we have indirect confirmation from Q-control territory that one way or another, it is a Bureau 1440 or whichever other company, and there are several, by the way, that are working in this field. Well, they are, Russian militaries have every single day hours of uninterrupted communication, internet communication over the entire Ukraine, which is a big deal, by the way. You remember there was a sort of celebration in the West and in Kiev controlled territory when Starlink cut off Russia from its service. And there was a propaganda that, well, Russian militaries were so heavily relying on Starlink and blah, 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 what they're going to do now. Really? I said straight away, man, Russian militaries would not even notice lack of Starlink, because they have their own means of communication, and there are other companies in Russia that are working on satellite internet, and I was correct. That's how it is. So good news. This is good news also, of course. And yet again, once this latest batch of satellites that were launched in past 2 weeks, I reported about it in one of my updates, by the way. Once these satellites will be on a working orbit, well, I guess there will be a high probability that Russian troops will have uninterrupted their internet over their entire Ukraine. And not just that, I have seen some maps on internet of coverage of these satellites, Russian satellites, and it's not just Ukraine, by the way. It's a lot more countries there, right? Hostile ones, I would say. Hostile ones. So those hostile ones should also be a little more careful, because who knows, man? Today these drones are eliminating legit targets on Kiev-controlled territory. Tomorrow they might fly into Poland, into Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, Germany, France, Italy, UK, and I hope they will. Because we have to retaliate on these countries that are directly involved in a war against Russian people and are guilty of death of thousands of Russian citizens. We have to revenge, by the way, 100%. There can be no doubts about it. And we will, one day or another. Maybe not necessarily while Putin is Russian president, but he's not going to be Russian president forever, isn't it? Someone else will be in charge and will remember and remind everybody what happens when you mess around the wrong guy. Just let's keep that in mind, right? So when we will retaliate, no one in Europe, for example, should whine about, because they will get what they deserve. That's it. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that hackers have exposed the identities of more than 400 intelligence officers linked to NATO, which is also good news, right? So pro-Russian hackers, Palach Pro, APTD EC, no name 057 reported to RIA Novosti, shared with RIA Novosti information that they had hacked database of law enforcement agencies in Spain and their other NATO countries. Thanks to this, they managed to uncover the identities of more than 400 Spanish and Ukrainian intelligence officers associated with the North Atlantic Alliance. We have uncovered data on Spanish spies collaborating with NATO, SBU, CIA, and MI6. We will also publish their personal data of hundreds of Spanish military personnel working directly with NATO structures in Ukraine and SBU. Palach Pro stated, and well, you know what? That's a good stuff, man, because first and foremost, illustration of 400 spies, that's quite a big hit on a NATO spy network or Western spy network, obviously. And then, of course, many groups of interests that being harmed, many countries that being harmed by Western ruling class will have opportunity to get their hands on this information and basically eliminate these terrorists. Because let's be real, by the way, Western countries are led by genocidal maniacs, every single one of them. And therefore, all the state institutions in those countries are terrorist organizations, including defense ministries and everybody in defense ministries, including intelligence services and everybody in intelligence services. These are mass murderers and terrorists. There is no decent human beings there. They all should be eliminated. Literally all of them, right? So hopefully all these 400 Western spies will be eliminated in short time. I hope so, at least, right? Because, as I have said many times before, I have no mercy for enemies, man, whatsoever, right? I might be psychopath or something, but I would not drop single tear if all militaries, literally all militaries, by the way, and all intelligence assets of the Western countries will die right now, today, at this second. I don't give a damn how many are they there, million, 2 million, fuck them all, let's kill them all, right? And also, I would not drop single tear if entire elites in the Western countries would be erased, right? Totally. Because enemies are enemies, man. I would love to see my enemies being killed, man, all of them, right? Not jailed or something like, no, killed. Totally eliminated. So that their names will end on them, right? And this human scum will not spread no more. And that's what they are, man. Enemies of Russia are human scum, period. And should be eliminated totally. And as I said, well, enemies of Russia, by the way, they are still alive, unfortunately. And are trying whatever they can to kill as many Russian citizens and harm Russian Federation as much as they can. So you can understand why I have no mercy towards the enemies, right? This is not ordinary enemies. And these are genocidal men that should be exterminated 100%. And so until they are alive, they are, of course, trying to harm Russian Federation as much as they can. A lot of NATO countries are engaged in a war against Russia, obviously, and every day, every night, for example, hundreds of drones are launched to kill Russian people. And Russian air defenses, past night, for example, intercepted 274 drones that were directed to kill Russian people by NATO member states. Let's be real. We know who is launching these drones and why they are doing this. They want to kill as many Russian people as they possibly can. Brits are leading this charge, British ruling class, British intelligence. US is assisting big time with their intelligence first and foremost, obviously. And the others are there too. I mean, Germany, France, we all know the names, right? And one day they're going to pay a heavy price, man. One day. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day they will pay a heavy price for all the crimes that they committed against Russian people and other people all over the world, man. All over the world. So past night, Russian Air Defense Forces intercepted 274 drones over the Belgorod, Bryansk, Volgograd, Voronezh, Kaluga, Kursk, Lipetsk, Oryol, Rostov, Ryazan, Saratov, Smolensk, Tambov, Tula regions, over the Moscow region, Republic of Crimea, Krasnodar Krai, over the waters of Azov and their Black Sea. So vast geography of attacks, as you can see there, and the Russian Air Defense Forces, as always, it is the case, intercepted vast majority of drones that were directed towards Russia, but unfortunately, it is impossible to intercept 100% of the drones, aerial targets, every single day. It's just technically impossible, especially if you take in account size of Russia, Russian Federation, biggest country in this world, and unfortunately, number of drones did manage to bypass air defense systems and kill and injured civilians and cause some damage and destruction. This morning, for example, early morning, we had reports that Kiev regime once again struck civilian bus that was transporting workers of one of the mines in the Zaporozhye region. There was 55 people on the bus. One person was killed as a result of this attack. Many others win. That information was shared with the public by regional governor Balitsky. So another crime committed by Kiev regime with assistance of NATO member states, UK first and foremost. And you know, dear friends, almost every day now they are targeting civilian buses. Almost every day or every other day, there are reports about yet another bus being struck, So this is clearly intentional. This cannot be just a mistake. Now, if once bus being struck, you might say, well, they didn't want a deter, it was not intentional attack on civilians. But when every day or every other day buses are targeted, well, it's intentional. Also, unfortunately, there are reports about an oil refinery in Ufa that was struck. I have seen some videos. There is a fire, at least from several areas that are coming from that place. So some significant damage probably was done to this refinery. But yet again, dear friends, Russian engineers, if anything, they already demonstrated that they're well capable of repairing damage to these oil refineries quite rapidly. And despite these numerous attacks on the Russian energy sector, oil refineries, oil depots, well, even Western propaganda is acknowledging, and Financial Times among them, that despite all these attacks, maximum is about 30% of refining capabilities of Russian refineries have been actually affected. 30%. Despite this freaking campaign that is led by US and UK to eliminate Russian energy sector and destroy Russian oil refineries, even Western propaganda, Financial Times included, are forced to admit that they only managed to disrupt production on a level of 30% of capacities of Russian refineries. So that's a quite telling stuff on its own, isn't it? And also we should keep in mind that many refineries, well, why you think many refineries being struck twice or 3 times or 4 times now? Because they are struck, Russian engineers are doing repair. In a week, oil refinery is up and running again, right? So Kiev regime and its NATO backers send another wave of attacks. If they're successful, they might do some damage, but it will take a couple of days. Russian engineers are restoring stuff again, and it's still working. So they're not going to be able to collapse the Russian energy sector. That's what I want to say, man. They just can't. These are mosquito bites, as I have said many times before. Very painful, very harmful, obviously, especially when people are harmed. But when it comes to economy, Russian economy, if you ask me, can these long-range attacks destroy Russian economy? Answer is obvious, no. No. Inconvenience, yeah, creates some inconveniences, obviously, but to destroy economy, no, man, they're not even close. So that's how it is. And I remind you, dear friends, that situation with the fuel supply is improving throughout the Russia, because it's not just Russian engineers that are restoring oil refineries quite rapidly, but also alternative logistical lines, including increase in the imports of gasoline first and foremost, right, that are having its impact already. But nevertheless, it is unfortunate. Obviously, it is unfortunate that these attacks on Russian energy sector and Russian civilian infrastructure, basically throughout their, at least the European part of their country, still continues and will continue until we will restore deterrent with the collective West. We know what needs to be done, isn't it? If we want to stop these long-range attacks on Russia, there is only one way we can do it. There's only one way. We have to restore deterrent with the collective West. And how are you going to restore deterrent? You have to strike back. You have to bring pain to the West so that they will come to their senses, because right now they think like they can kill Russians. They can destroy in Russia anything they want with total impunity. And as long as their psyche is operating this way, they're not going to stop. But once we bring pain to the Western elites, well, they will start thinking bit better. And yet again, man, some commentators out there on the internet are quite optimistic and are saying that, well, according to those experts, Putin is changing its restraint policy or on something different, and soon restraint might be restored. So sooner deterrent with the West might be restored. I'm not convinced about it. I don't see no indicators, actually, that Putin has changed. Putin has finally decided that he have to replace restraint policy with something more effective. But we will see. Maybe I'm missing something, right? Because I don't consider this maritime blockade of this Ukrainian Nazi fascist regime to be step towards restoring deterrent with the collective West, because Western ruling class does not care what you do with the Kiev regime or Kiev controlled territory. They don't feel no pain, right? If you want to restore deterrent, we have to bring pain to the Western elites. And we didn't do anything about it yet in that direction. So that's why I'm skeptical that Putin has changed his Putin has plans to change his restraint policy, but we will see. Maybe tomorrow he will authorize Russian security services and militaries to restore deterrent. I mean, anything is possible, right? But again, I'm skeptical, man. Until I will see it, I will not believe in it. Because I think, if anything, Putin is seeking some sort of a political solution, even if it's a temporary measure. I think Putin wants to end the military phase of this confrontation, even if that means to sign up for some sort of a Minsk III agreement. That's my personal take. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe tomorrow Putin will actually authorize Russian secret services to restore deterrent with the West. Maybe. But as of now, I don't see reasons, I don't see indicators to believe in that. Also, when it comes to terrorist activity of Western ruling class and their Ukrainian proxies, well, we have report that they sunk a vessel, by the way, in the Black Sea that was belonging to Russian Rosatom. And Rosatom, is the biggest company in this world when it comes to building nuclear power plants. So on Saturday night, past night basically, Yanina cargo ship operated by the FESCO company affiliated with Rosatom was damaged and sunk in the Black Sea as a result of an attack by Ukrainian/NATO/British, to be more specific, naval drones. The state corporation, Rosatom itself, reported about it. Two Ukrainian naval drones attacked the ship at approximately 10 p.m. Moscow time yesterday evening, about 130 miles off coast of Novorossiysk, according to Alexei Likhachov, head of Rosatom. As reported by the state corporation, all 17 crew members were rescued and are in satisfied condition. The Yanina is a container ship, or was a container ship, that was sailing in international waters and transporting civilian goods ranging from frozen food to construction and finishing materials. And you can see on your screen how that ship looked like, by the way. It's on the bottom of the sea now. And well, of course, this is not the first instance, and I'm afraid not the last instance when Russia-linked vessel is being targeted and destroyed by Britain, by British ruling class, British intelligence, British militaries, their American colleagues, and their Ukrainian proxies. But what is important is that, especially, is that this is a Rosatom vessel, right? And Rosatom is primarily company that are engaged in building of the nuclear reactors. Correct. Correct. And this happened in the Black Sea, right? Vessel was carrying some food and maybe for the construction workers, Russian construction workers that are working somewhere on a nuclear to build their nuclear power plant. And there was also construction materials and finished materials, right? So in a region, by the way, where in which country Russia is building nuclear power plant? Can you remind me? Oh, it's Turkey, isn't it? It's a Turkey, where Russia is building a coal nuclear power plant, correct? So maybe this situation is not just attack on a Russian company, not just attack on Russia, but also attack on Turkey to delay building of that nuclear power plant. And which country is most interested Turkey not to have a nuclear power plant? You can name quite a number of countries, but first country comes to your mind that would allow to destroy completely that project of nuclear power plant in Turkey. Israel, correct? Israel. And and Israel and Turkey clearly are on trajectory of a war, by the way. Give it to 5, 7 years, 10 years, they're going to end up in a war. Quite sure about it. And which country is a major ally of Israel? Which country is a major ally of Israel? US, right? And if it so happened, by the way, it so happened that NATO aircrafts for a 2-day, and I report about it, 2-day runs rate, British and American spy planes, by the way, were circulating over the Black Sea, right? 2 days in a row, and their first information was published on July 29th, 2 days ago. So now you tell me, dear friends, if there is a link there between sinking of this vessel, which is yet again belongs to, this is not just ordinary vessel, by the way, it belongs to Rosatom. Rosatom is a very specific company, right? So is there any link between these British and American spy planes that were circulating over the Black Sea and the sinking of this cargo vessel? I think there is a link. I think there is a direct link, by the way. And that's why I am saying Russian armed forces should intercept any and all spy planes, everything that flies, by the way, over the Black Sea, of military character. Spy planes, drones, anything, man. Just let's destroy them all, man. Right? Because that's what they do. They gather information, they gather intelligence, and use it to kill Russian people and harm Russian interests. So why Russian fighter jets did not receive order to intercept these British and American spy planes, man? Why? Who is responsible for that? Who is responsible, man? Always someone is responsible, right? So much harm is being done to Russia. So many people have been killed, right, by these NATO member states. Who is responsible? Nobody. One day, man, everybody will pay for everything. Let me say it this way, man. And yeah, that's all I will say for now. But I know who is responsible. I know for sure, man, who is responsible. And you know too. Everybody knows. And why Russian military and security services are not receiving green light to eliminate enemies of Russia, that's also topic that I think I know the answer. Why? And I even spoke about it a couple of times in my past videos, so there's no need to reiterate, isn't it? Time will come, and time will come, and we will know more and better. Meanwhile, and everyone will pay a price, man. And there's gonna be no freaking mercy towards the traitors. Hopefully, we have to eliminate all these motherfucking traitors, man. Here in Russia, first and foremost, inside. Once we will get rid of these traitors inside the country, then we will be in a stronger position to deal with the enemies outside, right? But now let's continue with this news that in Kiev, demonstrations are still happening, by the way, with demand former defense minister Fyodorov to be restored in the position of minister. And of course, all these demonstrations are orchestrated by NGOs that are on the payroll of European elites. I mean, continental Europe, by the way. UK has different game plan, and so clearly now we have a situation when there is an internal confrontation between inside the Western ruling class, right? Because London is pushing for certain candidates who will replace Zelensky. First and foremost, Zaluzhny is a British #1 candidate who is being taken by UK as a Ukrainian ambassador to secure him, basically, right? So London is pushing for Zaluzhny. US is pushing for a number of other people, although they might agree with London on the candidacy of Zaluzhny, but Europeans, Brussels and Paris, by the way, first and foremost, they also have ambitions, right? They also have Berlin too, in some ways, but Berlin is controlled mostly by Anglo-Saxon elites, so therefore Berlin can be ignored. But Brussels and Paris, first and foremost, they want to have a say. They want to have a say. There is a historical confrontation between the French elites, French ruling class, French aristocracy, and British ruling class and the aristocracy. This confrontation goes back centuries, by the way, right? They hate each other, actually. And even though they are globalists, members of this globalist club, they still every now and then are fighting each other, as a Catholic Church does, by the way, as Vatican does. Vatican is also part of a globalist club, but every now and then Vatican goes against a major force among globalists, which is London, obviously, right? British elites. And so clearly there is a confrontation, internal struggle now between Washington, London, and Paris, and Brussels is acting on behalf of Paris, obviously. Well, I would not give Europeans much chances, because they are in much weaker position than UK and US. But look what they do, man. They clearly are demonstrating that if they want to, they can freaking go for yet another Maidan. They can organize Maidan and conduct a coup d'etat and replace Zelensky by someone who they want. So this is a message, by the way. What is happening on streets of Kiev and on streets of other cities in Ukraine, this is a message that France and Brussels are sending to London and Washington. And it is interesting to observe this confrontation, because you don't really see this kind of stuff every day, right? When internal conflict between members of this globalist club spells into real life. But in case of Ukraine, it definitely did, right? And I wonder how far Paris and Brussels are willing to go because, man, British ruling class, their arrogance of British ruling class is beyond anything, right? I don't think they are even capable of taking seriously European elites. I mean, they probably think like they are too freaking powerful, right? In different league. So they don't have to listen to Europeans. I guess that's the attitude of London, British aristocracy. And in that case, Paris and Brussels probably will try to further escalate. They will probably try to further escalate to not just gain momentum, but also to force London and Washington to give them a place around the table whenever such geopolitical topics are discussed in the West, as Ukraine is, for example. So it is interesting, man. It is interesting how the situation develops. I still don't think Europeans have much of a chances. London and Washington are just too powerful for them, but tensions inside the Western ruling class is definitely something good because that will weaken this evil force that Western ruling class is, at least in some ways. And of course, that's a good news for whole of humanity because this evil force is an existential threat for everybody. Everybody, literally, no matter where you live, man. You might be Londoner or New Yorker, or you might live in Canberra somewhere in Australia, by the way, or in Shanghai in China, or in Murmansk, by the way, here in Russia, or Pretoria in South Africa. Does not matter. Or Rio de Janeiro, man, in Brazil. Does not matter. Western ruling class is your enemy, a mortal enemy, right? So anything that harms them, even if it's some internal confrontation, is a good news, generally speaking. So let's see how far they will go, right, in this conflict there. Also, I want to share with you information, dear friends, that Marco Rubio, head of U.S. State Department, and I think he still is national security advisor to Trump, isn't it? So basically, probably after Trump, formally at least, the most powerful figure in U.S. right now, at least in administration. And so he was interviewed by Fox News, I believe, by Trump's daughter-in-law. Anyways, and he was asked about Ukraine, among other things, and he said that in upcoming weeks, Washington will try to launch another wave of talks to peaceful solution to be found in regards to Ukrainian crisis. And well, when I see this report, first thing that come to my mind was, well, you know what? It was me, isn't it? That who said quite some time ago now that Putin is moving towards some sort of a Minsk-free agreement. He will probably prefer now to have a Minsk-free agreement, or whatever it's going to call it. But obviously, Putin and his team will try to sell it as a victory, as a great victory or something like that. But clearly, lack on behalf of Putin, lack of will to restore the deterrent with the collective West basically leaves him no choice but to agree on some sorts of a temporary solution, right? And I guess this statement of Rubio is linked to that reality, right? And in a couple of weeks' time, we might actually have certain movements. One might even call it a breakthrough. And before end of August, early September, maybe some sort of Minsk-free agreement will be signed, and we will see cessation of hostilities on line of contact. I hope I am wrong on that, man, because temporary solutions are harmful for Russia. Only Western ruling class will benefit from it in reality, right? But yet again, Putin is a Russian president, and if he is not willing to restore the deterrent with the collective West, then what options does he has left? um, temporary solution, right? Because let's be real, man. Declared goals of special military operation, demilitarization and denazification, not gonna happen if we have no deterrent with the collective West, because we're not gonna be able to demilitarize collective West. We just cannot, right? Demilitarize whole of collective West, and therefore there will be always enough weapons and enough money in the West to send it to Ukraine and to continue this war, right? As long as there is anybody left in Ukraine that can pull the trigger, and there are a lot of people still in Ukraine, by the way, 18, 20 million, out of which a million or two can be forcefully mobilized, easy, right? So therefore, if Russian president has no will or has no intention to restore deterrent with the collective West, which will require retaliatory strikes on NATO member states, in that case, he don't really have a choice but to go for temporary solution, de-escalation, right? And that will mean that conflict will be frozen, and well, sometime in the future will resume again, right? And as I said, man, this war will only end actually when Russian troops will be on the border with Western Ukraine. Everything from now to that point is going to be temporary solution. So that's what I think, man. And this Rubio statement that in the next couple of weeks, there might be some movements again. To me personally, is a hint that something is being cooked, man. Something is being cooked behind the closed doors, right? And before end of August, early September, before parliamentary elections in Russia, by the way, we might actually have an agreement, some sort, about de-escalation. Let's see. Maybe I'm wrong on that, or maybe not. Share your opinion, dear friends, what you think about it. So that's what I think, right? And your friends, also there is one point that I have to say. Honestly, if Putin will go for a temporary solution, you know what? I'm not gonna be too critical, because even though decision will be, I would not support the decision itself, because temporary solutions only benefits enemies of Russia to rearm, reorganize, and all the rest. But yet again, Putin is a legit president, by the way, and this is his call. This is his responsibility, his call, and if he will decide that he is not going to restore deterrent with the collective West, at least right now, authorizing retaliatory strikes, then obviously, in that case, it is clear for him also, right, that we need a break then. We just need a break then in that case, because we're not going to freaking demilitarize whole of collective West. It's just not possible. Not possible. An alternative to that is a forever war, which is already like 4.5 years. So if we can't restore deterrent with the West, and if we can't demilitarize that very same West, then what is left? Temporary solution, freezing of the conflict, at least for now. And at least people won't die. At least people will stop dying, correct? Yes, in the future, war will restore. War will reignite again, but that's a future. Right now, maybe only rational, more or less rational, right? Option that Putin might have is actually temporary ceasefire. Even though everybody understands that you know, that will first and foremost benefit the West. But you know, if I was president, by the way, I would go for deterrent to be restored. You know what I would do, isn't it? I would use weapons on NATO countries on the very first day they send single bullet. So it's not about what I think, right? So that's how it is, man. That's how it is. I think we're gonna have some sort of a Minsk-3 in next 4 to 5 weeks before parliamentary elections here in Russia, and the elections are scheduled for late September. I wonder how they're gonna sell it, man, because it's gonna be a very hard sale for Kremlin, isn't it? It's gonna be a hard sale, man, because after all, Russian officials themselves were for many, many years were saying that we are against temporary solutions and no freezing of the conflict, and we have to go all the way. And now, lack of restraint, lack of deterrent with the collective West put us in a position when we don't really have much choice. And the current leadership, it seems like, because yet again, other leadership would eliminate freaking NATO like that. But anyways, man. Okay, share your opinion, dear friends, what you think about it. I think we are getting close to freezing of the conflict for some time. Interfax, meanwhile, reports that Russian Foreign Ministry stated that Europe is preparing for a war with Russia. And how many times you have heard this kind of statements, by the way, from high-ranking Russian officials? Numerous times, right? In this particular case, Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko made such statement. Europeans are preparing for a war with Russia. They are not hiding it. They are saying it publicly. He told reporters on Friday, while commenting reports of Germany's plans to participate in French nuclear exercises this fall. And of course, Grushko is correct. Of course, European NATO member states are preparing for a war with Russia, open war with Russia. And many officials in the West, either in the NATO or in NATO member states, are quite open about it. Although, of course, they are framing whole situation in a way that it's going to be Russia that will attack us by 2029, 2030. So we have to be ready to fight Russia. In reality, it's a Western ruling class globalists, by the way, that will provoke confrontation, obviously. And if not restraint of would only be direct conflict with European NATO countries, because it is, level of tolerance of Russian president is beyond anything, right? I could not imagine anyone else being a Russian president and tolerating everything that he tolerated in terms of all this aggression that is coming from collective West, right? So only reason why we are not yet already in open war is because of the Putin. So Western elites should pray on him, right? Every day, man. Then only reason they are alive is because Putin is Russian president. I think Western ruling class understands that. But the only reason they are alive is because of Putin. And Western militaries have to understand. They have to pray, man, Putin to stay in power for as long as possible. British militaries, man. The only reason they are alive because of the Putin, man. Right? French militaries, German militaries. They should pray, man. Every day go to church, pray, man. Church or mosque or synagogue. Whichever belief they have, man. They should pray. that Putin stays alive for a long time and stays in power for a long time, right? Because if someone like me is a Russian president, all of them gonna fucking die, man. All of them, literally. I'll make sure that I kill every freaking military in the West. No mercy, man. I'll freaking eliminate them all. I don't give a fuck. I will send nukes on first day, man. 24 hours. And there would be no freaking collective West left. Right? One life of Russian citizen is much more than life of everybody in the Western elites, every military of Western elites, entire intelligence community of Western elites. One life of Russian citizen is much more than all of their African lives. So, that's how it is. And now, when foreign ministry is saying, I don't know, man, thousands of times that Europe is preparing for a war with Russia, I have a question. And what we're going to do about it? We're going to wait until Western elites will prepare as much as they can to kill as many Russian people as possible. And we're going to let them strike first to kill as many Russians as possible and harm Russian Federation as much as possible. That's what we are waiting for. This is the strategy of Moscow, that we know they're going to attack us. We know they are increasing tremendously investments in military stuff, right? They are preparing, and we are doing what? Exactly. Waiting until they will get prepared as much as they can and strike us. So we have to observe their first strike. And God knows, man, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of our people gonna die, so that Putin will have opportunity to say, you see, we didn't attack them. It's them that attack us, or whoever gonna be the president. And I have seen this argument, this is not even an argument, by the way. When people say, well, if you take any action against these European NATO member states, then, well, European elites will say, see, we were telling you that Russia gonna attack, so they did. And this is not an argument. Why on earth I would ever care what European elites gonna say? In my eyes, European elites are rabid animals, man. Okay? European elites, European militaries, European intelligence, it's a rabid animals. Why would I care ever what they will say? Or European media, by the way, for that matter. Rabid freaking animals. So why would you care about opinion of rabid animal? Honestly, it makes no freaking sense. This is not an argument that if you retaliate on Europe or if you do anything, they will say that, you know what, they were correct while saying that Russia is attacking, planning to attack. No, we didn't plan to attack, but we are now in a situation when we have to do something about it. And it is a tragedy of Russia, by the way, that country is led by people who acknowledges the risks, tells about these risks to the people, and then does nothing. I mean, this is insanity. Pure definition of freaking insanity and treason. That's what it is, man. That's what it is. You know what this resembles to me? There are reports, by the way. Of course, I didn't live during those times, but there are reports that allegedly Stalin and his inner circle, they had intelligence from different sources, not just from Japan, from our spies, but from Europe too, where Russian, Soviet intelligence was working. And allegedly there were reports to Moscow that Germany is, Nazi Germany, by the way, is planning to attack. And there were specific reports, by the way, even about timing of attack. And you think what Moscow did? According to legends that are circulating, you think what Stalin did and what Moscow did? Allegedly, Soviet troops had their order, Soviet troops that were stationed there on the border with Europe, to avoid any provocations and not to act if they see any provocations, not to react, not to overreact on it, right? Not to not to get engaged. Stalin was, even though he was informed that Germany is planning to attack, he was struggling to make a right decision. If Soviet Union attacked, by the way, on 15th of June, let's say, Nazi Germany, that was gathering freaking dozens of divisions in Poland and in the Baltics at the time, and elsewhere. If Soviet Union took action in early June, before Germans launched Barbarossa, do you think first several years of Great Patriotic War would be that disastrous? No, man. Soviet Union had more tanks, more aircrafts, believe it or not. Maybe Germans had more advanced aircrafts and tanks, but we had quantitative advantages, right? And soon our equipment was not any less than German, actually more effective even. So current situation definitely, I mean, sometimes resembles to me to that moment when that happened during the Second World War, before Germans attacked. Moscow knew Germany was gathering forces, clearly planning to attack. According to reports, Stalin even had exact intelligence about day when Germany will attack. And the order that he gave to Red Army was to stand down, to freaking stand down, man, and not to react or overreact on the provocations. What? And therefore, as a result, Russian army, Soviet army, by the way, lost numerous millions of soldiers, killed, wounded, taken prisoner, and majority of prisoners then die in those Nazi camps. We lost millions of soldiers, by the way. A lot of equipment, unbelievable number of equipment, because of this unwillingness of Stalin to take a first step, to go for preemptive actions when you have all the intelligence that war is coming. And right now it looks like Putin is doing the same. We have all the intelligence that war is not just coming, but war is already here, man. NATO countries are killing Russian citizens on daily basis. NATO countries are bombing Russia on daily basis with these long-range attacks, right? NATO instructors are on the ground there. And they're participating in planning of the operations and these long-range attacks and all sorts of terrorist activities. They are basically almost publicly, openly saying that, by 2029, 2030, we're going to be ready, we're going to go after Russia big time. They're saying it all, man. And what we do, what Moscow does, nothing. That's a treason, by the way, in my personal opinion. Willingly or unwillingly, that's a whole different story, but that's a treason. When you know war is coming and you do nothing to go for preemptive actions and eliminate enemy capabilities to prevent a wider war. That's how it is. And when I said, man, I am not a big fan of Stalin. He did many good things, but he did many horrible things too. And one of the most horrible things that he did is that he did not authorize Russian militaries, Soviet militaries, by the way, Red Army, to go for preemptive actions and eliminate those divisions of Germany before they cross, while they were in process of build up, right? When they were most vulnerable. And I remind you, by the way, UK already was in a war with Germany at that time. France was already occupied, and Americans. It was only a matter of time before Americans will get engaged too. And Churchill Churchill already had the plans, right? How to deal with Americans, right? All this story with the Mauritania was a vessel name that Churchill actually designated as for a false flag to draw Americans in. Yeah, it was Mauritania or something like that. It's a whole different story, but and we would eliminate Germany much rapidly, man, in a couple of years. In a couple of years, and there are so many millions of lives would be saved, man. But Stalin hesitated. And the Russian leadership is hesitating now, man, to take action. And that's not good, man. That's a straight way towards even a bigger disaster. Anyways, share your opinion, what you think about it. What would you do if you were in a position of a Russian president, by the way? Would you go for a preemptive action, or would you wait until West will strike on Russia first, killing God knows how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, and only then will react? What would you do? I personally would not hesitate. I would eliminate political intelligence, military leadership of enemy straight away, man. Straight away. No hesitations whatsoever. And that will save people, actually. That will save a lot of people, including in the West, by the way. Those ordinary people that gonna be, sent to war to die if when we actually will end up in open war. Anyways, let's continue with some other news. RIA Novosti is reporting that US and Israel allegedly are preparing large-scale strikes on Iran's energy infrastructure. Yeah, of course they are preparing, by the way. Information is coming from CBS. And just recently, there was a report that US SATCOM is planning 2 weeks of high-intensity strikes on Iran, another 2-week wave of attacks. It's all these reports, all these strange movements on behalf of Israel and the US is just freaking desperation. All it does is further makes it clear that Western ruling class and the Zionists, they are desperate, man. They are desperate. They are beginning to understand, at least partially, I think, that they cornered themselves, actually. They're in sea, they cornered themselves, and because they are unable to stop. By the way, what worries me most right now is that they're gonna go for nuclear weapons against Iran. US gonna go for nuclear weapons, man. That's what they think. Because with conventional means, Louisiana, yeah, I see common difference right now. Churchill went for that false flag operation. He sacrificed Louisiana and everybody on board, right? Vessel that was designated as a British naval asset, right? And Germans were actually almost begging Americans not to take tickets on that freaking Louisiana because it was a military target. It was officially a military vessel designated as such by British leadership, right? Especially so that, Germans will take action against it, Americans will die, because it was cruising between UK and between British Empire and the US, isn't it? And once Americans would die, Washington will get engaged in the war, and that's exactly what happened. So Churchill sacrificed everybody on Louisiana and their vessel itself, of course. And that's what British elites do, man. That's what British ruling class does, man. This is nothing new for them, because they have no morality, no principles, no nothing. That's well-known fact, man. British elites, actions of their, as a result of actions, criminal actions of the British elites, by the way, in past 300 to 500 years, more people have been killed and lives of more people being ruined than First and Second World War combined. So just think about it. You will understand how evil British ruling class is, man. You can't even compare them to any other group, by the way. Total freaking genocidal maniacs. No one is even close to British elites, man, when it comes to destruction that they cause on humanity throughout the world, man. And if you think about it, First World War was also on the British elites, and Second World War also was in many ways on the British elites, right? British ruling class and their Zionist allies. And let's not forget Munich Conference, right? Munich Agreement. When London actually encouraged Berlin to go for everything that they eventually did. So yes, Israel and US plans for for escalations with Iran. Yet again, man, only way Western ruling class might have even a slightest chance for success when it comes to Middle Eastern chapter of their strategy is nuclear weapons. At this point, after quite some time since this aggression has begun against Iran, we have enough indicators to know well that with conventional weaponry, neither US, neither its allies, Israel or European countries, they're not going to be able to succeed in this Middle Eastern chapter, man. No way. Only way they can have a theoretical chance on success, and success for Western ruling class will be entire region to be engulfed in a fire of violence on ethnic and sectarian lines, not just Iran, but entire region. So with nukes, they might have a chance. Without it, I don't think so. So that's what is scary about all these developments in the Middle East, because they're gonna go nuclear, man. Already there are reports that Trump twice tried to raise the question of nuclear strikes on Iran, and the Pentagon allegedly stopped him. But who knows, man, what will happen third time? Because if Western ruling class, if globalists, one thing is if Trump on his own spoke about nukes, that's one thing. But if Western ruling class has decided that that's their option that they're gonna go for now, nukes, in that case, when they will push Trump again to raise their topic, Pentagon would not say no, and they might go nuclear. America, by the way, not Israel. Because if Israel uses nukes, that will be death sentence for Israel itself. So therefore, US will be the one that will deploy nukes. And I'm afraid the risk of that is very high. I would not say it's inevitable, but it's close to that point. Because Western ruling class has no brakes, man, has no reverse gear. So they're going to continue, and that means eventually they're going to come to that point when they will go for nukes. And they are close to that point already. Meanwhile, RGC made a statement yesterday that they are shutting down almost straight once again. And believe it or not, but shortly after IRGC statement that Strait of Hormuz is closed and only under the authorization of IRGC Navy, any movement might happen there, SETCO made statement that no, don't listen to Tehran or IRGC. Strait of Hormuz is open and Iran is controlling nothing. So feel free to move around. And I mean, it's crazy, man. It's crazy, but some idiots actually believed SATCOM. And the one vessel actually tried to ignore Iranian warnings, and that vessel, you guess what happened to that vessel? Um, it gets smoked, man, off coast of Oman. Every day or every other day, man. Something of this kind is happening when Iran has said, and very clearly, that you know what, you coordinate with us, man. Don't even try, because you're gonna get smoked, right? Don't listen to those freaking idiots in Washington. We are here, and we are in charge. So listen to us, man. And majority does listens, right? Because they understand reality. But some listens to Western propaganda more, and as a result, they're getting smoked. Unbelievable, man. At this point, after so many such instances, so many such incidents, I truly struggle to understand how, man, any captain on a vessel can dare to ignore Iran and move its vessel and risk lives of his crew like that, man. I don't know. Captain of this particular vessel probably is a freaking brain dead zombie, man. Because a normal human being should not act this way and should not risk lives of the people. You know. Also, interesting developments are taking place in northern Iraq, in Kurdistan, to be more precise. After strikes on leadership of number of Kurdish terrorist groups that are affiliated with the CIA, US CIA, British MI6, Israeli Mossad, and also after strikes on military camps of these terrorist groups that are happening quite frequently, actually. Now we are receiving reports that energy infrastructure that is controlled by Kurdish forces in Erbil area are on fire. And you can see one of the such facilities on fire on your screen. Thick smoke is coming out of the place, and clearly this particular, whatever it was, a refinery or whatever, not going to be operational for quite some time now. So I think Iranian special forces and their allies in Iraq, Shiite militia, first and foremost, they are softening the ground. Basically, they are eliminating basically military and economical financial capabilities of these Kurdish terrorist groups, man. It is what it is, right? Kurdish terrorist groups that are associated with Israel, US, UK, and so on. And this process will continue. I'm telling you, man, after this war, Iran is going to be not just a regional power. Iran is going to be major global power. As it was always, historically, man. Usually. Since the existence of human civilizations, Iran was always a major powerhouse on the global scale, right? And the past few hundred years, when Iran is being sidelined kind of from a global arena, is anomaly. It's anomaly, man. So therefore, Iran is back, man. Iran is back and they're stronger than ever. And everybody in the region should learn the lesson, by the way, and not mess around, because history loves to repeat itself quite often, and it would not take long once anyone will take a look at the history to understand what Iran is capable of. Just saying. Meanwhile, US lost another F-35 to an accident. This happened in California, San Diego area. Marine Corps F-35B experienced some malfunction, crashed her, and burned her. Not repairable. It's gonna go into freaking garbage. Although these planes are garbage from, to begin with, right? Over-engineered, they're flying garbage, and that is that. I truly don't understand, man. Why anybody buys this shit? But there is one explanation: Pentagon forces, Washington forces all these NATO countries to buy this this garbage plane, man, right? Because I mean, it's too bad, man. How many accidents already F-35 experienced? Like there is every single week something is happening to these planes, man. Why these planes are constantly in the news, and always for wrong reasons? What the hell, really? So another 100 million, about 100 million wasted in the US, 100 million of taxpayers' money. But yeah, nowadays when Pentagon's budget is around trillion and next year gonna be 1.5 trillion, what is the 100 million, by the way? Peanuts, right? Who cares? Who cares? America is not asking questions, so as long as they are okay to waste their money this way, then nothing gonna change, isn't it? And there also, I want to end new segment, dear friends, on the situation in a Spanish exclave, Ceuta or whatever, on African continent. Day before yesterday, there was a massive, well-organized incursion into this exclave, Spanish exclave, by all sorts of gang elements from Morocco. This was organized, obviously, by Morocco, but with active involvement, I'm 100% convinced, of Israeli Mossad and US CIA. And I spoke about it yesterday, day before yesterday, I think, too. That definitely this is not some random developments. This is US, Israel are messing with Spain, plus Morocco, by the way. Morocco wants these exclaves, and Spaniards have another exclave, by the way, not far away there. So Morocco demands these exclaves to be handed over to them for a long time. And maybe one day Spain will actually get out of the continent, maybe. But as of now, it is a Spanish territory, and well, Morocco, US, and Israel overrun this Spanish exclave without a single bullet. And not a single statement from Brussels, by the way, as of now, from NATO headquarters in Brussels. NATO country, last time I checked, Spain was a NATO member state, right? And its territory being overrun, and nothing is done about it. Nothing. Which is crazy, by the way. But this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. This is this Ceuta area. Some say, by the way, 60,000 people went in. They clashed with the locals, with the police. They robbed whatever they could rob, stores and everything, right? And when they get hungry, about half of this invading force went back to Morocco, and another half still there. And reports are that Morocco, with assistance of US and Israeli secret services, are planning to go for another incursion in another freaking exclave of Spain. This one here, also city, by the way, which called Melilla, right? Melilla. Okay. I guess locals in Melilla should prepare to receive tens of thousands of guests, man, from Morocco. Okay. I mean, let these NATO countries, US, Spain, and their allies fight each other, and their proxies also. Morocco has clearly become a proxy of Israel and US, and that, of course, escalates situation big time in North Africa itself. By the way, because well. Morocco has difficult relationships with Algeria. You know about it. There is territorial disputes and all sorts of stuff. Algeria has its own supporters, and surprisingly, one of their countries that supplies, at least supplies weapons, a lot of weapons to Algeria is, you know which one? Russia. So therefore, even though in certain areas, in terms of Libya, for example, Russia and Algeria stand on different sides because Russia supports Benghazi government, isn't it, in neighboring Libya, but Algeria supports Tripoli government. So here, Russia and Algeria are on different sides of barricades. But when it comes to let's say situation with Morocco, of course, Algeria will need Moscow's assistance, and I think Moscow will assist. Possibly, possibly. We will see. We will see. But yet again, whenever you have U.S. and Israel, man, presence of U.S. and Israel in your region, you are cooked, man. Or Europeans, by the way. I mean, these are free forces that if you have them in your region or in your country, by the way, you are cooked. There is nothing good gonna come out of it, man. Right? Historically, take a look at any part of this freaking world, right? Since Israel's existence, which is just a freaking, I don't know, man, 80 years, 47, right? That's the year when Israel was created, 46, 47. Grave mistake on behalf of humanity, of course, to create this entity. But anyways, since then, Israel is constantly destroying neighbors, destroying livelihoods of millions of people. And when it comes to US and European countries, well, entire the history almost that, exactly that. Destruction of livelihoods of everybody throughout the world. So, yeah, something big is going to happen in North Africa. And when it comes to Spain itself, I don't really feel sorry for Spain because of Spain is in the camp of Russian enemies. And therefore, you know what, fuck him all, man. Why would I care? Why would I care, man? And that is that. If Spain was a friendly to Russia, yeah, okay, I would have a different attitude. But because they are enemies, because they send a lot of weapons, munition, money to Ukrainian Nazis and fascists, I don't care, man, if Moroccans will invade their mainland Spain itself, man. After all, Arabs were controlling territory of modern Spain for how many centuries? 400 years? More? So therefore, half of Spaniards are Arabs, actually. So let them reunite, right? No big deal. And generally speaking, I've been sarcastic in many ways, of course, but I honestly don't care, man. I'm just reporting about it because everybody reports about it. And this might have some consequences. So it's somewhat important. That's the reason why I'm actually reporting about this. But what is also interesting, I think we as a humanity are facing another major, it's not, I would not say it's a migration crisis. I will say it's a migration period or you know, we had a great migration of the people about that started about 1700 years ago, right? And lasted for quite a few centuries. That migration was caused by climate change, in some ways, by climate change in the Asia, when many tribes moved westwards, right? and that's how they Mongoloids end up in Central Asia. Many people think that Mongoloids were always dominant race in Central Asia, but it's based from what I know, this is not really the case. Central Asia was a territory where Indo-Europeans were mostly living, Iranic-speaking Indo-Europeans, right? But yet again, we are talking about some 2,500 years ago, 3,000 years ago, right? But then some around 300, 400 years after Christ, AC you call it, isn't it, in English? There was a massive migration that has been launched. Some say because of some climate issues in the Asia. These millions of people start moving westwards. So they established themselves in Central Asia, and they still live there. Majority now Mongoloids living in Central Asia. And also many went even further west. And you remember Huns, isn't it, from history? Huns were Mongoloids, right? Not only Mongoloids, because when Huns moved through Russian steppe, let's say, it was a Scytho-Sarmatian steppe at the time. Of course, many Scytho-Sarmatian tribes actually joined Huns because some fight with them and some didn't, because nomads had some similarities in culture, in some stuff, right? So they're pretty much the same lifestyle they had, and some Scytho-Sarmatian tribes, together with Huns, went further westwards, and eventually this Hun incursion into Europe caused a fall of Roman Empire, isn't it? Western Roman Empire was finished shortly after. I would not say Huns finished it off, but it was weakened enough to eventually die out, right? So that was a big migration, major migration process that was caused by, some say, climate. Who knows what was the actual reasons, man? We don't know for sure, but maybe it was a climate. If this was a nomads, right? So nomads had this freaking massive hordes of these animals, right? So if there is a climate change and if your animals cannot feed, then they die, right? So you have to move in a direction where there is some freaking grass, and your animals can freaking eat something, and you can eat then those animals, right? So there is a chain there, right? Now I think world is also facing this great migration. This time, this great migration is caused not by climate change, or not primarily by climate change, but by human activity. It's a Western ruling class, isn't it? It's a Western ruling class that generated this migration, this great migration, because for decades and decades, by the way, for centuries actually, they were messing around their entire world, right? They destroyed livelihoods of hundreds of millions of people. They destroyed not just countries, but entire regions. And as a result, they create the conditions which resulted into this mass movement of the people. And this cannot be stopped now. I don't think this can be stopped now. And Europe gonna be overrun. And I think US is going to be overrun also. Tens of millions of people from Middle East, from Africa, from Asia are gonna travel to Europe. And tens of millions of people from Latin America are gonna travel to US and Canada. It's inevitable, right? Because Humans are humans, by the way. I mean, they want to live in better conditions. You cannot blame them for that. You want to live in better conditions. I want to live in better conditions. Everybody wants to live in better conditions, right? And so, if entire region of these people, let's say in some parts of Africa, being destroyed by centuries longer activity of Western ruling class, then those people are gonna seek better life, and where they gonna move? Where it is easier, right? To enter and then to, you know, seek for a better life. In Europe, this is easy because everybody is going in Europe. There is no freaking borders, no nothing. You go there, and that is that, right? I don't even know what the hell is going on in this regard in Europe, but in terms of this uncontrolled migration, by the way, it's insanity, isn't it? But I think they've been overrun already. I think they've been overrun. They are paying the price for all their rampage that they cause throughout the world, and US and Canada will do the same. They will pay price too. It's just, this is unstoppable. This is a big migration. It's a major migration process that will last probably decades, you know, decades and decades and decades to come. And eventually, in 30, 40, 50 years from now, they're going to be no more Europe, by the way. You would not be able to recognize Europe, right? It will be something else. And US and Canada also, by the way, going to become something very different. If in case of US and Canada, it's not going to be that much of a event, because both these countries are created by migrants on the bones of local people, right? They went in, those migrants killed everybody they see from locals, stole the land, and they built their countries, right? So that's their history, basically, of US and Canada. But Europe is a bit different, by the way. European in Europe there is nations, there is cultures, right? Unique, that are distinguished from others, and they're gonna disappear, and it's gonna be very painful, man, for many people. So therefore, civil wars are totally unavoidable in Europe. Wars between their neighboring countries, totally unavoidable. Next 30, 40, 50 years is gonna be hell in Europe, right? Best decision, Europeans, ordinary people in Europe, with which I have no beef, by the way. With their elites, I do, but with ordinary people, no, man. So best decision ordinary Europeans can make right now, until it's too late, is to run away, man. You cannot save your country. Don't be naive. It's too late now. So take your family and their come to Russia, for example. Are you gonna be okay here, man? Your kid's gonna become ordinary Russians, right? And they will be safe in Europe, and you will maintain elements of your culture, your identity, right? You'll be okay. You'll be comfortable. While in Europe, you are down, man. That's how it is. And that's a price that European societies will pay for crimes that their elites were committing throughout the centuries all over the world, right? Because eventually everything has a price, and everybody pays. Everybody. Isn't it? Am I correct on that? Scooby is commenting, overrun Russia. No, man, you're not gonna overrun Russia. I think from Europe, they're gonna be tsunami of migrations from Europe, but Russia is operating differently. We don't have open borders like they do, right? So it's not that easy to migrate to Russia. I mean, try. It's not that easy, man. And you have to be absolutely determined, because to deal with the freaking bureaucracy, you joking, it's something, man, right? So you have to be absolutely determined that you know what you are doing. And I expect not just wave of migration from European countries to Russia, but tsunami to happen. And probably tens of millions of Europeans will end up in Russia in next several decades. But they're not going to overrun, right? They're not going to overrun, because in order to overrun Russia, I mean, it depends what you mean by overrun, but to overrun Russia in a sense to change the Russia, you have to be from a different culture, different traditions. Everything has to be different. But Europeans and us mostly are the same, man. Actually, maybe people don't really think much about it, but there is not that much of a difference between us. In lifestyle, in many ways, we speak different languages. We are mostly Christians, but different Christians. So we here in Russia, for example, are mostly Orthodox Christians. Europeans are Catholics and Protestants, right? But still, it's a Christian culture. So for Europeans, it will be quite easy to adapt, by the way, right? Many of them will join Orthodox Church because this process is already happening. There is a massive influx of new people into Orthodox Christianity in Europe, by the way, in America, because especially among young generation, because they are disappointed in what they see in a Protestant church or in a Catholic church. And they appreciate these principles that they see in Orthodox Christianity, right? And so many will join Orthodox Christianity. Many will maintain their religion, like their way, Catholics or Protestants. And okay, I mean, who cares, man? No one's gonna force you. We have our freedom of religion, right? But culturally, because there is so much similarities, by the way, they're not gonna change Russia. They're gonna change, man. They will integrate in the Russian culture. First generation will struggle, obviously, especially because of the language. But second generation, third generation, they're gonna be just ordinary Russians, by the way, right? And you think in Russia there are no Europeans? There are millions of Germans here in Russia, by the way, descendants of Germans. Hundreds of thousands of descendants of Greek people and French people and you name it, man, Polish people. And they are ordinary Russians. They're just ordinary Russians, Russian patriots, great members of the society. So exactly the same will happen when this wave of migration will come from west to east, from Europe to Russia. And they're going to be just fine, man. They're going to do just fine. And they will see, by the way, that despite all their harm that their freaking elites did to Russian people and Russia, there is no hate here in Russia towards ordinary people in the West. No matter from which country you are, man. UK, France, Germany, Italy, whatever. Denmark or Switzerland or, we have no, or Spain, by the way. We have no hate, man, in our hearts towards the people. Elites, that's a different story, but people, they welcome, man. So they're not going to overrun Russia. It's not happening, man. Russia is too big for that. And also, most importantly, we are in many ways the same, man. Right? Different, but same. So that's how it is. But Europe gonna be overrun because people that are moving into Europe have mostly different religion, different cultural background, there are different traditions. Everything is different, almost everything, right? And that's why Europe is is declining, because look, Russia is a multicultural country, right? Multicultural, multi-ethnic, but Russia was built this way. Russia was from the beginning was built this way, and this nation sees itself as a multicultural, right? As a multi-ethnic. That's how nation building was happening throughout the centuries. So this is a natural for Russia. In Europe, by the way, you have a different historical root. It was a monoethnic, mostly monoethnic societies, right? Mostly monoethnic societies. And now, in these monoethnic societies, there is a massive influx of other already formed ethnicities, right? Already formed ethnicities, already formed cultures, traditions, and they don't really mix well, right? It's not like Germany is building, Germany is just now being created and expanding and is being formed as a new nation during this process of massive influx of some other people. No, German nation is already exists. It's already created, right? With their history and traditions of thousands of years. And it's it's finalized, right? And now when you have this massive influx of people of different ethnicities, different cultures that are also formed in some other part of the world as a separate, self-identified culture and their nation, how are you gonna mix this, man? This cannot. Someone have to give up. One side have to give up, right? One side have to integrate. And people that are coming to Europe, they are not inclined to give up anything, man. Right? If anything, Europeans might give up their way of life, and there they do actually. In many European countries, they give up their traditions, their way of life to facilitate these incoming waves of people, right? And that definitely will force millions of people in Europe eventually to seek other home where they will feel more comfortable in terms of tradition, culture, traditional cultural values or principles, and they will come to Russia. And they will integrate. Yet again, they have to integrate, man, because Russia not gonna allow nonsense that is happening in the West, man. You came to Russia, you integrate, you learn language, you obey law, you're gonna be a good citizen. That's otherwise, just fuck off. No one gonna mess around too much, right? And no, you come to Russia, you respect Russia. That's how it is, and you welcome them, and those people will come, they will integrate, and they will be happy, man. They will live freaking happiest years of their lives. I'm telling you. I don't know where you live, Scooby, but if you ask me, man, I would not want to live in Europe right now. I want to live in Russia with my family, man. If you are alone, you might don't give a damn, but when you have a family, you think about many things, right? And Europe is definitely not the place to live with the family, man, in my personal opinion, because of all this turmoil, right? It's a chaos there, man. Now, dear friends, let me highlight several recommendations from Christopher, and let me check Rumble Bumble. Let me check Rumble, by the way. I see no super chats on Rumble, so therefore I can't react on any. Was there any super chats, and I missed it or something? Right now, there is no super chats, by the way, that I can react on. So let's then highlight. There was a donation um, from Natalia or Bald Eagle, by the way. Thank you very much, Bald Eagle and Natalia, for your $19 donation on the PayPal. Thank you very much. And I see a question, interesting. Job Wonder is commenting. Levan, is there Islam in Russia? Oh, Islam is a traditional religion for Russia. Of course, there is. Uh, of course, there are republics in North Caucasus, for example, Kabardino-Balkaria. There are autonomous regions there also. Kabardino-Balkaria, for example, Kabardino-Balkaria, Ingushetia, Chechnya, Dagestan. These are Muslim, majority Muslim republics, historic, by the way. There is one official report that are part of that federation, is North Ossetia, right? I am a Georgian Ossetian, so that North Ossetia, Alania, and these people are my people. So that's the only Christian people, Christian republic in Northern Caucasus. Tatarstan, by the way, Muslim, majority Muslim, obviously. And there are other regions too, right? Also, just 80%, 85% are Christians, mostly Orthodox Christians. But there are ethnicities, by the way, here in Russia that are dominantly Muslim. Pakistan is a Muslim country, and it's not just Christianity and Islam is a traditional religion, but Buddhism also. There are republics here in Russia, by the way, that are traditionally Buddhists. Buryatia, for example, Kalmykia, for example. I believe both. Kalmykia is a sure, sure Buddhist predominantly, and I believe Buryatia also predominantly predominantly Buddhist. But as I said, man, Russia was built this way, right? Russia as a this unique civilization was built this way, right? Russia was built this way. So therefore, it's natural. We have a respect of each other, right? We see ourselves as a part of one society. This comes from Soviet, right? That Soviet Union, brotherly nations, so on, brotherly people. And so Russia was built this way. That's a different story. Europe was not built this way. Europe was built as a monoethnic society. Russia was never a monoethnic society. Since it started expanding and since its creation, it was deeply, let's say, kingdoms. Let's we were interacting with people, Sarmatians, right, and with many other peoples. So there was no such a thing as a total monoethnicity when it comes to Russian civilization. Russians are nation builders, obviously. 80% of Russian population is people that identify themselves as ethnically Russian. At least 80% of people are Russians, right? Ethnic. That's how they see themselves, right? They are ethnically Russian. They're minorities too. I identify myself as Georgian Ossetian. I'm a Russian citizen, but I identify myself as a Georgian Ossetian. Correct? Many people identify themselves, sir. Russia is built this unique way. Europe was not built like it was ethnic societies, right? Germans, French, Spaniards, and these Anglo-Saxons in UK. Right? Before Anglo-Saxons, there were other people there, but Anglo-Saxons went in. Anglo-Saxons are their tribes, right? They just went in, killed everybody or almost everybody. They become dominant force, right? And that is that. English language. I always find it funny when when people first time are realizing that English language, for example, is just part of German language families. And many people don't know this. They think there is no links. Anglo-Saxons were German tribes. So you think their language would be what? It's German language. Right? Sounds, but it has roots in the German language mostly. Of course, there is many words that came from French and stuff like that. That's a whole different story. But you know, anyways, oh, you see, goodness me, man. Scooby commented that there were super chats. There were super chats, and Anna is at work, by the way, and I was engaged in a program, and after 1 hour passes, after certain time, comments, new comments are arrived, and the old comments are, disappearing, and then I missed those super chats. My apologies, friends. I just can't see any right now. Uh, First comment I can see on top is the Scooby's comment: nuclear war. Cascade typically refers to theoretical scenario in which limited nuclear exchange escalates into full-scale global nuclear war, turned due to automated response systems. That's the first comment that I see right now on Rumble super chat on Rumble. Last I can see right now is from Timbuktu. Mickey, you can pin up super chats like another opinion. The top. So Timbuktu is uh, explaining that super chats can be pinned. I don't even know really. So thank you for helping, for assisting. But you see, dear friends, my apologies that I missed your super chats. Uh, this happened. I should I should constantly monitor, man. Every 10, 15 minutes, I should check chat there. Uh, Last 2 weeks, Anna had her paid leave, by the way, uh, and she was at home. She was a lot, so I get relaxed a bit. Now Anna is. It's all up to me how well I will monitor everything, and it's my fault that I was not enough. So just my apologies for that. And let me highlight recommendations. Let me highlight recommendations, dear friends. We have a kind of big community chat. Tomorrow is a day for a big community chat, but you know, today quite interesting. So I think I answered this question. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and Judaism is traditional religions for Russia, actually. Uh, and so there are recommendations for Christopher there. Thank you very much for your recommendations through PayPal. And Christopher is commenting Russian T-90 single-handedly charged into Ukrainian trenches. What happened to them next? Video can be seen on YouTube channel Murat San. Channel has 27K subs. So thank you for sharing, Christopher. I'm definitely gonna take a look at the video. I haven't seen it. 90 charges on the launches. That's a quite a risky move nowadays, isn't it? If you keep in mind these drones that are constantly flying over the head. So that's an insanely brave move to do something like that. Also, Christopher is recommending Honor is the video that you might want to share exclusive footage. Troops unleash when they unleash fire on an enemy through hidden heavy machine gun. This video can be seen on YouTube channel called Military Update. Thank you for this recommendation. And another one, Joe Meisheimer, Odessa's failure will be disaster for Ukraine. This video can be seen on YouTube channel Glenn DC Clips, which has 1,000 subs, and many members of everybody is affiliated. Well, not affiliated, but everybody is, of course, well informed about John Mearsheimer, professor of Chicago University, and with Glenn Deason, expert from Norway, um, who does a great job. He has a big channel on YouTube. Yes, I'm subscribed on YouTube. And this channel are second channel. I guess some short clips being published from main channel. Maybe I have to do something like that also. By the way, I do have a channel. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing. And I agree with Scheimer. Losing this region is of course going to be total disaster for the regime and the hackers, 100%. Oh, you see, Leon, your voice is breaking. Thank you for letting me know. I will should be. Let me return this. Is it okay now? I refreshed the entire StreamYard page, so hopefully it will be better now with sound. There was more recommendations, dear friends. There were more recommendations from Christopher. Let me highlight this too. Sound is better. Thank you, Timbuktu, for sharing. And Timbuktu, it's good that you are here. I responded to your post on Rumble. It was day before yesterday, I think. Take a look at it if you have not yet. Uh, and if you can write me on the mail on gudadze.levan@mail.ru on that subject that you were initiating discussion about, and so there is another super chat. Let me react on this one too. Thank you, Christopher, again for your recommendations and donations through PayPal. Christopher is commenting. Russia targets U.S. factory. Poland confused over Russian missile. This video can be seen on the YouTube channel called GNF. Um, Another recommendation: Two Fronts, One War. This video can be seen on YouTube channel. Counter comments. That's something new. I don't think I subscribe to this channel. So thank you for sharing. And there are also another recommendation from Christopher. Um, they walked right into their stronghold, comes under full assault. This video can be seen on YouTube channel Airwide Military. So another video. Oh, okay. Sound is. Thank you, Christopher, for sharing another video, information about another video about major crashes. And dear friends, um, that's it. Let me check Rumble. Now, my apologies, sir, to everyone who sent their super chat on Rumble, and I was unable to react on it. Should be probably one or several super chats was yours. And my apologies to you for not being able to react on it. Can you write right now what was the topic, and I will react on the question or the commentary without super chat. If you can just drop her, if you can just drop her comment, I will react on it. Whoever done super chat, we just drop her comment and will react on it right now. I feel bad, man, that I missed your comment. You see, many members are saying that their sound is bad. I don't know. I guess something has happened right now because in past there was not that many complaints about the sound. Anyways, dear friends, I have a program. Tomorrow we will have a big community chat. Tomorrow we will have a big community chat, and I try to be engaged much longer with the community. Today's program is 2 hours and 40 minutes already, so it's not really that short. So thank you all, dear friends, for your attention and support. Have a wonderful day, wonderful weekend, and see you tomorrow. Bye. And my apologies to members of the Humble community for not being able to chat on the chat for now.